How do I, 32 female, tell my son, 5y.o, that his father isn't safe to be around alone? So I divorced my son's father after it became apparently I was a walking sex doll he could use for booze money. No matter how many times I tried to talk with him, how many times his own family tried, or how many chances I gave him, he never tried to change. He won't admit he has a drinking problem that still persists to this day. After a horrible mistake that could have cost my son's life, drinking and driving, he is no longer allowed to see our son alone. Ever. I have and have had full complete custody of our son since the divorce, as the judge deemed him unfit. My ex-mil, God bless this woman, watches my son overnights a couple nights a week and does his schooling, remote learning. She's a retired teacher. She used to let her son stay the night there until she woke up to find he'd left the stove on after cooking my son sausages for breakfast. When she went to confront him, he was passed out and smelled of alcohol. He's now no longer allowed to stay past 8 p.m. at her house. My son is so very innocent in all of this. He is understandably upset because Daddy can't stay anymore, and I simply don't know how to tell him why. I don't want to ruin his relationship with his father, who seems hellbent on doing that himself, but he needs to know something to try and understand what's going on. I plan on getting him a specialized child therapist, but with COVID right now and him being high risk, I just can't do it at the moment. So until then, any advice at all would be really appreciated. Update. Holy crap, I did not expect this to blow up the way it did. I've talked with my son, and told him that Daddy is very sick in his head, but he loves him very, very much. I explained it's been like this since before he was born, it got worse when I got pregnant, and that it doesn't mean he loves him any less. For anyone wondering, I hold no ill will towards my ex. I did for a while, I'll admit, but therapy has helped immensely, and while I have no love for him anymore, I do want him to get better for our son. My father was much like this, and unfortunately for me it ended very, very badly about 10 years ago. Thank you everyone, so much, for all of your help and advice. I might not be able to respond to all of the comments, but I'll read them and appreciate the help. Tell him that his father is very sick, and because of this he can't be around now. You're not lying, and you're putting his condition in a way a child can understand. Well, I was 6 or 7 when I worked out for myself about my mum's drinking and the effect it had on her. So it might be possible to say something along the lines of, when Daddy drinks his beers he gets silly and forgets how to look after little boys and keeps them safe. As a child of a father who chose drugs and had his mother lie about it, please just be honest. I was told all sorts of stories and made up nonsense about my father. I hated nothing more than finding out later in life I didn't know him at all when it was too late. I've seen people say he's sick. Don't say he's sick. Tell your son that while you both love Daddy very much, he's just working on some problems. Dad can't come back till he gets his problem solved, and he's working real hard. This would at least prevent him from ever asking if he's still sick when they do interact. This would leave him less worried about his well-being and hopefully a more positive outlook towards him. Have you considered involving a child counselor online? I think matter of fact, with non-judgmental language, at a level they can understand, is usually the best bet. Daddy drinks beers, and when he does he makes unsafe choices like driving with you in the car or leaving the stove on. Being vague allows too much room for kids to create brand new scenarios and increase anxiety in my experience. Kids know when someone is messed up, they just don't have the vocab or experience to verbalize it, and it makes it so much scarier. Maybe try contacting Al-Anon. They probably have age-appropriate responses for this kind of situation. Tell him Daddy isn't well and at the moment he can't be around Daddy. I'm not a father. But if I was in your shoes I would say it in a way that makes sense for now, since he is 5. What I came up with while reading is saying or telling him his father is silly. And you don't want to be with silly people because what they do might get you into trouble. I know this sounds silly, but this is a technique I have used to explain of some kids to other kids at the school I work at. And whether it is from a teacher or a parent, I feel the message may be similar. I know it may sound trite, but there may be a Sesame Street clip that could give you some advice. Sesame Street never shied away from explaining difficult situations to children, whether it be Mr. Hooper's death, 9/11, or even understanding from a child's perspective what autism is. I would find a children's book that discusses addiction, like, My Dad Loves Me, My Dad Has a Disease. I have no further suggestions, but I am very glad that your Mill is the person that she is. Blessings and well wishes to you all. Less than 3. I wouldn't wait to get him and yourself therapy. Most therapists are doing therapy online now, so you should be able to find someone local who does telehealth. You just need a phone, tablet or computer and an internet connection. There are books you could read with him, e.g. Everyone here has given you great advice, but I wanted to chime in and say how important it is, and it sounds like you're doing a fantastic job with this already, never to let your son overhear you badmouthing his dad. I had a parent with a substance abuse problem, and I think my mother's constant, unrelenting complaining about him did more damage than the fact that he was usually dopey, unresponsive, asleep, irresponsible, etc. You can mitigate a lot of this just by being a grown-up about it, as difficult as that can be. When kids hear one parent criticizing the other parent, they internalize it and they think something is wrong with them. Be honest using words and concepts he understands. 5y.o are smart, he will know if you are making things up. You may have to explain what alcohol does to people and that too much is dangerous for the drinker and those around them. Your son knows the concept of right and wrong, and that things can be dangerous. Never talk down his dad no matter how much he hurt you. That only harms the child. He doesn't need to know details. Just, "Daddy's sick and can't," even though he loves you very much. That's it. No discussion, no information. Going through an incredibly toxic separation divorce. I got both my kids telehealth therapy. It's going great. Tell him his dad is very sick. Explain that until dad gets better he won't be able to stay. It's not a lie. As he gets older he will see the reason for his sickness and he will understand it more than you think. Been there. You can do telemedicine appointments. I'm in kind of a similar situation and telemedicine has been a vital part of our family's recovery. You can do online therapy, teletherapy. Tell your son that his dad really wants to be a great daddy, but he can't be a good enough dad right now, so he can't spend enough time. Say that he has a bad disease, he does, it's alcoholism, that means he can't be as good a dad as he wants to be, so he has to get better before he can spend more time with him. Some therapists are seeing kids via video. Some kids find it helpful, others don't. Something to try. I've had to deal with similar, though my ex was doing drugs more than drinking. When my son asked why he couldn't see his dad, I explained something along the lines of, "It's mummy's job to keep you safe, and right now, daddy is making decisions that are unsafe for you. While daddy spends time getting better to be safe, we're going to give him the space to do that. You've done nothing wrong, and you can see daddy more once he's better." It led to a few more questions, naturally, some of which I could only answer that he's too young to know certain information, but every decision I make is for his best interests. Simple. By not letting the guy near the kid. Addiction is a mental illness, and if you can frame it non-judgmentally, it should be okay. Just explain that he is struggling with something difficult, and that because of this, he is having trouble being a safe adult. Don't consult Reddit. Consult a licensed therapist. I actually came across a book for smaller children called, Up the Hill Again, or something along those lines. It seemed like a great book for children with a parent who abuses alcohol. I'll see if I can find it for you. Explain it in a soft way. Daddy did some bad things because he was sick. And now daddy has to go away to get better for his sickness, so he can't stay long because he needs his treatment. You don't want him to be hurt while with his daddy, because when you're sick you don't always think clearly. When daddy gets better, you'll be able to see him more, but right now he has to be patent. Good thing you said you are going to get him a child therapist, because otherwise the comment thread would be, in classic Reddit style, filled with people telling you to get a therapist. Your son is 5 years old. Be honest, dad has a problem drinking too much beer. This is a sickness that can make dad do dumb things to get himself or you hurt, even if he doesn't mean to do it. Until dad decides to get help to quit drinking beer, he can only see you if me or grandma is there as well, and he cannot take you anywhere alone. That's really all you need. I counseled my 5-year-old son similarly when his mom and I divorced. He's a well-adjusted 14-year-old now. You can do this, but always remember, point out the drinking as an illness that dad has to overcome with help. Abstain from attacking his father's character and talking other trash about him. Don't poison your child against his father, as the father may one day clean himself up. I don't really have good advice, but I wanted to drop by and say thank you as a former kid of an alcoholic, physically abusive father. No help from my mother, she's great, but wasn't strong enough to leave him. I don't blame her, not even now at 24 years old. I wished every day they would separate. By getting full custody and legal power over him, you're already doing an insane amount more than most for your kid's mental health in the long run. Thank you for being strong enough to do that. Your kid understands more than you think. And as he gets older he'll understand and be forever grateful for you. Heart. I would just tell him Daddy is sick and until he gets better he can't be alone with him. It's hard for any young child to process, but I think the sick card is the best option. You are not fully lying, he is sick with a disease and until he gets help he isn't going to get better. It does suck. I am slightly going through the same thing with my 8-year-old daughter. Her dad keeps going to jail, so I tell her dad is in an adult timeout. He did something bad and now has to do an adult timeout. With time and age they will start to understand more. It sucks, but you are doing a good job and thank the Lord for your mill being supportive of you and your decision. As someone that grew up with a mother warning me constantly what a horrible monster my father was, always told me to run the other way if I see him. Thank you for taking this into consideration. Down the road, your ex may change his ways, and be a positive influence. For me, it was very difficult to meet, much less have a relationship with my dad after being raised to fear him, even though my interactions with him showed that he was in no way a bad person, at least now. Your ex is in a rough place. It's impacting your son and will continue to do so. It's very important to perhaps get in to see a therapist who can help you figure out the best method for telling your son why his father is not on his life. Recovering addict here. I don't have children, but if I did, now that I'm clean and sober, I'd be grateful that my loved ones would have kept me away so I didn't do anything I regretted around them. Just be honest with him in a way a child can understand. His father has a sickness and when he gets better, he will be around again. I would explain to your son that his father has a serious health condition that makes him unsafe to look after him. This would an honest answer without having to talk down to him about his father. Alcoholism changes people complexly. It's difficult to help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. If he truly cares about his son, he would make the steps to change. I've witnessed a man addicted to hard drugs his whole life and quit so that he could be a better father. You and his family done their part. Now he has to make the right steps if he wants to be more involved in his son's life. Children are resilient, and if your son is aware that his father has a problem, it might help keep him safe. It's good for him to know that he, for example, isn't supposed to go in a car with his dad and why. But when you tell him, please set aside your entirely reasonable anger towards your ex. Teaching your son to have sympathy for those fighting with addiction is worthwhile. Even at 5, I bet your son can understand that his father is making bad choices, but that it's okay to love him despite that. He's so young. Having a 5y.o myself, I think I might just tell him, Daddy doesn't feel well at night, and going back to his house to go to bed early helps him feel better. You can add more information as he gets older. But right now he has no concept of addiction or what alcohol does. His idea of being sick is throwing up or having the sniffles. I'd think the best thing you and Mill can do is not make it a big deal. When he gets sad that Daddy can't spend the night, you can just reply, I know, it's a bummer. And then have a cuddle and redirect him onto something else. Looks like you already got an answer for this, but similar thing happened to me, but with me as the kid. Apparently he was a good person before, but when he came back from Iraq as an interrogator he changed. He became an alcoholic among other things. He never hit us, so she just left. I believe if we ever asked about him, which we rarely did, she would just say that he loves us very much but he made some mistakes, was flawed, like every other person. Luckily I never really remembered him though. Good luck to you and your kid. I would be incredibly blunt about it. Tell him his father is dangerous to be around. If he ever asks why, tell him he put his life in danger, almost killed him, and it was apparent he wasn't gonna change. As he gets older he will understand more and he will be glad you didn't lie to him. I lived exactly this, except without the Mill support. My contestant mantra with my kids: you have a mom and dad who love you very much, but only mom knows how to be responsible all the time. And the all the time part is important because when we don't know if today will be a responsible day or not, it can be dangerous for kids. That's why we have to enjoy time with Dad with other grown-ups there to help. Other grown-ups who know how to be responsible all the time. But you have lots of love from both of us. He passed away just a few months ago in his late 40s. My kids are now just into early adulthood. The years of age-appropriate truthful conversations help make his real-life loss more manageable. Best of luck. Heart. Good for you for letting your MILF spend time with him. I just came here to say that you're a really good mom and a very caring person. You're doing the right thing. My dad used to drive my family around while he was drinking without us knowing, too. Your child may not understand now, I didn't at the time, but they will one day be thankful for everything you did to protect them. Best of luck to you and your family. Alcoholism is a beast. I'd recommend looking into local therapist practices. I know a lot of places are offering remote therapy sessions for their patients. If anything, it might be worth it to get yourself on the list because sometimes the wait can be a few months. My mom would always tell me that my dad's brain worked differently than ours. He's bipolar. She always left it very vague and never used super complicated language. Kids will always be able to see that something is wrong. Frame it around his experience. He's probably seen his dad drunk and wondered what the hell is going on. Try and suss out that experience in his part and provide context for it. If nothing else, it'll give him a relatable way to understand why and begin educating him on the importance of self-control. Some child counselors do make house calls. It's worth looking into. I'm so sorry your family is going through this. You can tell him daddy has an illness that makes him misbehave and do dangerous things. You can upgrade your explanation as he grows older, if your ex doesn't stop drinking. In the end, if your ex doesn't stop drinking, you'll need to prepare yourself for the time your son sees things like they really are and, for the anger that he'll feel towards his father. Start online therapy with your child. It's being done all over the world right now. This is a heartbreaking situation for you and your son. Big hugs to you. I always advocate for licensed, secular therapy.